Once upon a time, there was a leprechaun named Belinda. Correction, there was once a knee-high to a giant redhead. That's more truthful. She had a trusty pet frog named Teddy, pronounced with a burr of R's. She loved him more than anything. 1, because he was a pet of little needs, and 2, because he was her favorite color, green. She loved the color in all its many forms, in shamrocks, in her wardrobe, and in her pocketbook. Hence the big production she put on each and every St. Paddy's Day. She would dress up as a leprechaun to amuse the residents of her home, a town many referred to as the Irish Riviera. She had the whole get-up, the top coat, dark leggings, and a green sequined stovetop hat where she would hide her favorite amphibian. She entertained them all, for a price, that is. During the festivities, all the revelers would shower her with coins in exchange for her shadding of the good fortune. Once they dropped some cash into her purse-sized kettle, she would listen to their 3 wishes, and then with a heavy brogue, she would smile. "Aye, and then the like of the Irish be with you then." Then, on cue, the talented Terry would make her hat appear to magically dance a jig. She also wore a kiss-me-I'm-Irish button, which she hated, even though it upped the coins the suckers would drop in the pot. They would bend down to slobber a smack. Belinda would tilt her head down, so their lips would land on her forehead and never her cheek or lips. It was all kinds of yuck. This year felt different, though. She wasn't at all in a festive mood. Winter had been long, and in those dreary nights when the constant cold bled through the walls and into her bones, she had plenty of time to think, and think she did. And the more she thought, the more she concluded that she had no luck at all, never mind any to share. They say that leprechauns are solitary creatures. That was the only thing that Belinda believed she had in common with them. In spite of the fact that she loved being draped in green, and loved having a pot full of money, who doesn't? She didn't like the fact that many of the tipsy partiers were laughing at her, not with her. No amount of coins could make that hurt go away. After years of jeers, like the lucky little green guys, you tend to prefer your own company. As the temperature went lower and the snow total grew higher, she had many a conversation with Terry. "Why shouldn't I take their money? They have no problem poking fun at my deficiency in the height department." Terry replied with a ribbit. Truth told, frogs always answer in this manner. It takes a trained ear to parse the words behind their musical sound. An emphasis on the R, on the I, a stutter with the b's, or a staccato or a adagio placed on the it can entirely alter the frog's meaning. Now, back to the tale of Belinda and her beloved Terry. Ribbit. A trivet? What does an object you put under a hot bowl so not to scorch tables have to do with what we're talking about, you silly frog? Ribbit, ribbit. I know their taunts hurt like bee stings, but what about the money? Ribbit, ribbit, ribbit. I am too brave enough to not wear green this St. Paddy's Day. Ribbit, ribbit. My favorite scarf, the one with the green clovers, and you know how much I love them, four-leafed or not. Okay, have it your way. And with that, she tore her scarf down the middle. Terry was so proud of her, he would have shared a fly with her if he had one handy. Decision made. This year, Belinda would no longer continue the ruse. She honored her promise to Terry and didn't wear any of her favorite color, except for Terry himself and all his greenness. She kept him hidden in her white handbag. She went into town wearing black and gray, as monochrome as the sky that hung over the ruins of snow that delayed spring. The other party-goers were dressed to the nines in emerald, but their demeanor was not much better than Belinda's. The dingy snowbanks had canceled the annual parade, a highlight of the town's celebration, much to the chagrin of the residents. Many of them had gathered in the town dance hall, but none of them did dance. That is, saving for a handful of youngsters who held practice their step dancing routines all year long, waiting up for that day. Their feet were joyful, but none of their Irish eyes were smiling. Belinda walked like a shadow through the sea of green until she came across someone dressed as out of place as she. The man sat on a whiskey case and looked even smaller than Belinda, if that was even possible. He was dressed head to toe in crimson, not a stitch of green. His three-piece suit was weathered velvet. Even his knickers were red. On his feet were grand shoes topped off with large brass buckles. He was tapping a cane made from a blackened branch of a tree, all knots and crooked angles. He tapped it against the wooden floor in time with the footfalls of the sullen girls. He spoke with a mix of English and Gaelic, words woven within words. Belinda listened hard, trying to catch the gist of his jammer. "Top of the morning, if that's what it be, eh, lass? Hard to tell, in the murk and the mire." Belinda just shrugged her shoulders. The wee man sized her up. He scratched his head with the top of his shillelagh just under his fabulous red hat that stood straight up as if defying the gloom cast over the town. "I remember ye. You're that Leprechan't girl, ain't ye? That's a rarity indeed, a lass and a lucky scallywag, all rolled into one." She shrugged again. "Done hung up that con. That's what it was, you know. A trick, a sham, and all of them out there. The marks." He scrunched up his face quizzically. "Oh, posh! Being a foxer or not, you just be glowing when you be wearing the green. I can't fake that feeling, missy." Terry agreed with a muffled ribbit from deep inside Belinda's bag. She sat down before the wizened old man and, with her knees pressed firmly against her chest, opened up to him. "It was all a bunch of lies. Big, fat lies." "Bollocks, you say? How so, lassie?" "First and foremost, I am not a mythical creature." "Huh, who is?" he smiled. "I'm not a genie, no 3 wishes. I live in a rooming house, not a lamp. In fact, I'm not even Irish." "Nay, you say? With a shock top like that on your noggin?" "I'm Jewish, Belinda Leibowitz, not an O or a Mick or a Mac in my name, and I don't make shoes either. Wouldn't even know where to start. I could, however, hunt you down a discounted pair of Jimmy Choo shoes in no time flat." "I'm kind of fond of my footwear myself," he remarked, admiring the shine of his buckles. Belinda stared down at her equally exquisite shoes, heels tapping in an agitated rhythm. "Ah, don't be so hard on yourself. Every people have their troubles. My folk clung to a lowly potato to rise from the darkest of times. Your own kind clung to a solitary flame to see you through the same. With each other, we put our trials in the rear view and celebrate the chance to celebrate. Remember, lass, everybody is Irish on St. Patrick's Day. Everybody." With that, he got down from the keg and turned to the Celtic band that was having trouble tuning up. "Ah, the weather wreaks havoc with the strings, and with our spirits." He started for the band, then turned back to Belinda. "Just remember, you have more magic in you than you can imagine, if only you can believe you do." Terry ribbited in agreement. The man clicked his heels together and shuffled away. Belinda sat on the floor and conferred with Terry at length. Anyone passing her saw what appeared to be a little girl whispering into her handbag. After a particularly heartfelt ribbit, Belinda left the party that didn't know how to start. She slipped on the stubborn ice thrice on her way home, once almost losing Terry in the slide. When Belinda returned, the band on stage was churning out a rendition of Danny Boy, sounding more like a funeral dirge than a weepy ballad. She was once again wearing her green. Her scarf, half the size it once was, draped proudly around her neck. Terry even wore its match, smaller, Natch. She was not alone. Belinda shared the wee man's words with her Uncle Bernie, who called his friend Warren, who brought his klezmer band. Warren called his musician friend Hans, who was in an Umpapa band, and invited them to the party. In turn, Hans got in touch with a Native American fellow he had played with at a reservation casino, and he brought his drum circle. One of the circle drummers knew another percussionist in a Caribbean steel drum band, who invited some other musicians who performed in a Tejano samba band, and they all marched side by side into the town center, all decked out in green, each putting on their own spin of the raggle-taggle gypsy. In spite of the weather, the town at last had their parade. All the musicians crowded the stage, and even more people crammed the dance hall. Belinda borrowed the Crimson Man's shillelagh and proceeded to imitate a conductor as the party raged on. The weather forecast warned of another frozen day, but be it the drumming of the instruments or the feet against the weathered floorboards, as if by the magic of that chaotic rhythm, it began to rain. The more it rained, the more the mounds of snow receded, and the more the snow evaporated, the more the grass beneath peeked through, revealing the youngest of green. Sunset was nigh. The man in crimson caught up with Belinda, who at least for the day was referring to herself as Olibowitz. He looked out over the party in full swing. "Here be the purest of magic, eh, lass?" He winked, motioning to the door. "Your last wish, miss?" They started for the door, arm in arm. "Just who are you, sir?" she asked. "Just as you learned, I suppose. Perhaps more, perhaps what you were years before and are now. Perhaps just what people want me to be. No matter who or what I may or may not be. I need to tarry on. A fellow's been on me trail since noon, and I've already given away me wishes for the day." He drew Belinda in close. "I'll leave you with this, lass," and he whispered in her ear. In between sets, as the musicians bellied up to the bar to partake in some emerald suds and some tall tales, Belinda welcomed the crowd outside. In the moments before sunset, the rain had ceased and the fog lifted. An orange hue bathed the world in Kodachrome. Over the mist of the melting snow, over the patch of budding grass, a rainbow had appeared, stretching out over the gathering crowd. One end of it disappeared behind the far horizon. The people whooed as if watching fireworks. Terry gave Belinda a ribbit of encouragement, and she found within her the courage to speak. "I have good news and bad news, my fellow Irish men and women, be you of the blood or be you honorary. The bad news shared with me is this: there is no pot of gold at the end of that there rainbow. Good news is that at the end there is something far more valuable than gold. A new tomorrow, with the sun shining, rife with the possibilities a new day brings, and together, bearing witness, that can be quite a treasure." Belinda took off her green sequin hat to share the moment with Terry. But there was no frog to be found. Just a small satchel made of crimson felt. Opening it revealed a gold coin that had the glint of chartreuse in the failing light. Upon close inspection, she saw engraved upon it a 4-leaf clover and the following words: "Look around you at the riches that abound. Stay golden, Olibowitz, you lucky little leprechaun." Belinda looked high and low, far and nigh, finally catching a glimpse of a pair of silhouettes disappearing over the green hill in the far away. One danced a jig, the other hopped in time. Smiling through her tears, she clutched the coin as the vision faded, one into the other, into the ether of dreams. Her wish had been granted. She found herself surrounded by an evergreen tide of newfound friends. The band struck up a flurry of strings. Cheers and laughter followed as they cavorted to and fro, wallowing in the hollow of his hand. It was such a day. How can I phrase it so that you can possibly understand just how indescribable a moment it was? Oh, I know. Ribbit! the end of the story, but never the promise of the rainbow.